Good day, everyone. This video is about hollow beads, and I am going to be making the green and the purple decorated one at the top. I have this video sped up just so you don't have to watch a long, boring melting process like usual. And the first thing I want to do after heating my mandrel is actually set the size of my bead, and that's by putting a disc at either side of the hole. You can see the hole rotating around there, and this will be the size, however large you want your bead. This is going to be the ends of your bead. And after I do my initial discs, what I want to do is build up coils that are not touching the mandrel. You don't want to get bead release all over those. But they're raised up. I'm putting on like the top inside edge, and so I'm building up towards the center of the bead. And so I'm doing one side at a time, little by little, coiling it on to reach the center. And of course it's going to look all lumpy and crooked. That's fine. I mean, that's the way I do it, and they turn out to be pretty nice looking at the end. So don't worry about it being perfectly even, perfectly coiled. It doesn't really matter at this point. And so I'm building that up until I meet in the center, and then I'm going to do a final coil at the top where everything gets closed up. So you totally close up that gap in the center and make a solid bead. What I did when I dipped my mandrels is, after dipping, I capped the end with my finger. I held it closed with my finger, and I blew out the little blowhole in the center that you're putting the bead on right now. And then I re-dipped the very tip of the mandrel to plug up the bottom of that mandrel. So the only air that's going to be blown in to this mandrel is going to go into that bead. It's not going to blow out the bottom. The bottom is plugged shut. And this is the first time I'm actually making a hollow bead, so I'm not sure if that's what people normally do, but that's the way I figured it would be done best. And so now I have my whole coil section built up and a big ridge in the center. You can see how crooked it looks. And I want to make sure I melt that all in. End to end, I want it nice and glowing. It's a really bright yellow glow. It might look kind of whitish on the screen, but in person it looks like a very bright yellow. So you want this really hot, and then you could start blowing, and you keep rotating. They're very slow, gentle puffs. If it's too tough for you to push the air into that bead, then you're not hot enough. So go back and get it hotter. It's really easy to blow these. I had a question on a previous vessel video, and so that's why I'm posting this one. And I have two different size mandrels. I have like a 3/16, I believe, and a skinnier one. I forgot, but like a 1/8 or something. And I was wondering if they would be different of blowing into one versus the other. I thought maybe a smaller one, a smaller mandrel, would be harder to blow into, but that's not the case. It's just the heat index that you need to actually get the glass to move, and it moves very easily if it's the right temperature. And so now that I'm blown already, so it's already fairly hollow and thinned out, I don't need as much heat. As you could see, it only is an orange heat. It's not really the yellow heat like my initial blow, and it's because I didn't need as much to actually get to the shape I wanted. And so there's that green one. And the next one we're going to do is a decorated transparent purple with a opaque purple decoration on top. And I'm pulling out the stringer for the if I can get it, for the decoration, and I'm going to put that aside while I do my purple base bead of transparent. And this one might be, I think this is the thicker mandrel. It's a little bit, it's like twice as thick as the last mandrel. So this was my second test. And so I'm doing the same thing. I'm putting on little coils of glass to mark my bead ends. And I'm going to build around the coils without touching the center. And just build up on the top inside edge so it moves towards the center. It moves towards the other coil of glass. And just go back and forth until you build up to the middle, which is fine. And I have this sped up also. I think it's like 30% faster. So it actually does take a little bit longer than you see in these videos to actually make it. But yeah, I had a lot of fun playing with these mandrels, because I usually don't blow out beads. I usually blow out, you know, vessels or other pieces on the end of a mandrel. So this was a little different for me, blowing in the center hole and actually having it attached to a mandrel like this. And cleaning them is another issue also. Sometimes you have the bead release that's in the center. Sometimes that gets stuck and it's hard to get out. And what I did was, I have a bead, an electric, or not an electric, but a battery operated bead reamer. And I made sure that the whole hollow was filled with water. The whole bead was filled with water. And I kept it in the water, and I had my mandrel going all the way across from hole to hole, and, you know, churning that, and kind of like almost like a blender in there, and it helps churn up the bead release in the center, and then you kind of blow it out through the hole as hard as you can. You blow it out, you know, like trying to blow an egg out of a hole in an eggshell, and eventually it should all come out. And so now I'm doing the same thing. See, it looks all wonky and lumpy, and I gotta melt this all down. And so from end to end, you want to make sure your ends are nice. And so I'm getting it really bright yellow, you know, almost a white heat. And then once it's hot enough, you let it, you know, sit and even out just a little bit. So that the heat actually gets all evened and leveled out throughout the bead that or throughout the glass that you're heating, and just very gentle puffs. And so now I'm rolling on the marver. This is another way you can actually try to shape the ends, is to push the glass down, and so it'll push out against those bead ends. And so now I'm adding my decorations. I'm adding like some little swirls. I think I added 4 swirls around the edges of this, or the kind of the center part of this blown bead. And it's not fully blown out yet. I blew it out, I don't know, like 2/3 of the way or something before I put on my decoration, because I wanted my platform, or my base for my decoration, to be established. But I didn't want it blown all the way to the final size. And so it is a little bit smaller than the final bead will be. And now I'm just adding dots around, trying to fill any holes that I can gather, or where I think that some color or some opaque purple is needed. And so I'm good at that, looking around going, where do I need to place another dot? So I'm just gonna put all these on. And actually I could leave these, if I wanted to, I could leave these, you know, raised and just melt them in slightly and leave it like that. My bead will be done. I would probably want to establish, to make sure my base bead is the final shape that I really want it, before putting this decoration on. But I wasn't so worried about that because I know I was going to melt this all in and blow it out again, so it's all going to be a smooth bead. And so now I'm going to speed up again, and I'm just going to melt all this glass in, and then you can puff into it. If it seems like it's collapsing a little too much, you can give it a little bit of puff to make sure it stays all hollow and nothing collapses down all the way to the mandrel. Otherwise, just melt it in like you did the last time. It doesn't need quite as much heat as that first melt. Like I said, it's pretty much already fairly thin, and so I gave it a little bit of a puff there, not much, and tried to straighten it out on my mandrel. Make sure the ends are nice, and see the stringers aren't totally melted in. They're almost melted in, but they're not totally yet. So I was just trying to get the shape going before I do the final blow, and trying to get it all even. And so I'm heating it up fairly well again now. Want to get all that stringer melted. Wait a second or two, and then keep rotating and just blow gently. You don't need much power there. It's a very gentle blow, little puffs. It's not a continuous puff. I puff a little at a time. And here's the final bead. Thanks for watching.